All righty, we'll give it a few minutes. Hello, happy Wednesday, everyone. I can't believe it's the end of May. How are you today, Alex?
I'm living the dream.
Living the dream. We
The
missed you
dream.
last week in Dallas, but we had you
Yeah.
with us. For those of you who were there with us live, you got to see Marnie in her awesome attire. She looked
She's
so great.
she's still trying to outdo Captain Obvious. It's obvious.
I was I was gonna just say that. It's obvious, but the Captain Obvious was also very stellar, if I must say.
He has an award for it somewhere. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
got a
sure.
trophy.
Yeah, I was like, we did give you a trophy for that. That was great.
I
But
still think Chris Sandbag because I think his outfit was better than mine, but that's okay.
hey, John. Yeah, it was such a good time last week. Like I said, we missed having Alex there. Marnie was there, dressed to the nines in patriotic attire. But yeah, super excited to be here today. Always love talking to you guys over at Lifecycle Insights. As most of you know, we work very closely with them here at Seven Figure MSP. Uh, Always love talking to you guys because you guys were actually a huge help to me when I was doing QBRs back, starting to do QBRs and get really into the nitty gritty. You guys were able, like, I was like, oh, I saw this one thing, or it was like, like a stoplight, yet red, yellow, green, like it just makes sense. I'm a visual. And you were like, look at this.
I always say it's so easy a C-level executive can understand it, right?
Yeah, no, it was so great.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just took it to the next level for me. And once I saw that, I knew the MSPs could super benefit from that. So hence the partnership with Lifecycle Insights. And we've really enjoyed working with you guys in the last, I would say, year and a half, almost 2 years now.
It's been a while. You've been putting up with me for a long time. Most people don't last that long. Kudos.
Oh, we love having you guys. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having you guys in Q4 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Should be a fun time. So
Yeah.
if you guys didn't have the chance to see Alex or Marnie on our stage last year or this year, they'll be Q3 in August. We'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina. But super excited today. We're obviously going to be talking about QBRs. Yeah.
Yeah. Something we've learned a little bit about in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so for any of you guys watching live with us, if you have questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A. Also in the chat, Marnie is here with us hanging in the chat. She's available to answer questions and input links and stuff that you guys might need. And then Alex and I can address any questions that you might have for us live here in the Q&A. So
Yeah.
let's just get things something that Marnie said to me last week that really resonated with me is QBRs are a lot like the weather.
Yeah, she's said that one more than once, and it's one of those where and that was actually, we've stolen some of these quotes from other folks. I'm a firm believer that all these little one-liners, they come along and they help kind of build your sales process. But and that's always like the weather is the whole everybody's talking about it, but nobody's doing anything about it. And QBRs were like that forever. I talked to a guy this morning who's like, oh, well, yeah, we promised our customers we would do QBRs 3 years ago. And I think we've done like 3 of them since. And, MSPs are busy. We get busy. So, it's just the situation where we have to make time for them. We have to address them. At this point in the game, they're not something you can afford to do nothing about. Right? You can't just look out the window and go, oh, I should have done a QBR today. At this point, you really have to be doing them. They're a differentiator between you and your competitors. They really are a value generator. They're the time where we get to bring the important things to our customers, to have those strategic conversations. And the reason we get along with Chris so well is we really believe in taking that risk conversation to your customer and making them aware of it. So, the QBR is a great time to sit down and have that conversation. And, if you're having the right strategic risk conversation, then you're probably not having the salesy conversation, right? If you address risk, the sale just kind of happens. The customer gets to yes, kind of on their own, and they think it was their idea. And then you don't have to go to a QBR feeling like you had to sell your customer something. I'm just here to tell you what the risk is that you're going to own when I leave the room, and we can have that bigger conversation.
Well, yeah, and then it becomes more of like building a rapport, right, with your clients.
It's a relationship.
Yeah, it's building that relationship more than hey, I want to come in and give you this like big old list of things, and you're going to have to spend money, and it's going to be like really painful. Like you both know that to some degree, like it doesn't need to be that way,
Well,
right?
our customers are trained, right? They're trained that the IT guy knocks on the door, says, surprise, I need money, and runs out the door, right? And they think we're here that we only show up when we can't make payroll, when we got to make the Tesla payment, like whatever it is. They don't realize that, from time to time we come across something and go, oh, that's really important to them. I need to go address it with my customer. So if we can set this cadence where maybe sometimes we meet with them and go, hey, you did everything I told you to do last quarter. All we got to do this quarter is replace that one workstation that's going into life, and things are good. We'll just keep moving on. But if you only talk to them every other year, then
Yeah.
of course, every time you go knock on their door, you want a bunch of money, because technology requires maintenance. And so the better the cadence you set, the more realistic the conversation, the more real the conversation, the less you're going to feel like that salesman. And I always tell everybody, if you feel like the salesman, you're probably doing it wrong, right? Let's strip the grimy out of the sale and really just have a business to business owner conversation with our customer.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't need to be this like 3 hour long, like painful
No,
meeting, right? Like
no.
in actuality, like how long should a QBR be?
Now you're going to make me use now you're going to make me use the quote that I can't say. So if I'm going to answer that question, I'm going to tell you 45 to 90 minutes, depending on how much content.
You
If
want me to
Marnie
come
were to
off
answer that
mute?
question,
You want me to come off mute and tell
if,
you my answer?
yeah, because it's me saying that is going to come across really sexist. It's 2022. There's some Me Too crap going on out there. So I'm going to let Marnie answer this one.
Well,
All
my
right.
English teacher from high school told us this is how long an essay should be. And Winston Churchill originally made the quote, but we would say, as long as a woman's skirt, short enough to keep attention, long enough to cover the topic. But Alex does have a good politically correct response to this question.
You see the pause button happening here, and me getting like the hook and off to HR I go. Like this doesn't end well for me, right? But the point is the same. Like it depends on where you're at with the customer. The first time that you do the QBR, it's probably going to be longer, right? Set the expectation with your customer that this one may take 90 minutes, but we'll get this process down, we'll get it figured out, and we'll get these to 45 minutes to an hour. I always go back to the quote that Mark Twain put out there, which was, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And it speaks to the fact that it takes real work to get this big complex topic into a defined talking point that we can repeat over and over. But once we build that process, once we get good at it, we really can shrink it down and deliver value to our customers. Because I always hated the feeling of, I coined it the $800 room, which is you go to see your biggest customer, right? And you've heard me tell this story before. You go to see your biggest customer, you look around the room and you've got CEO, COO, CFO, CTO, a whole bunch of department heads and managers and all these people with alphabet soup in front of their name. And I'm sitting here in front of my biggest customer one day thinking, how much it cost them to bring all these people into this room. And I kind of did some back of the napkin math and went, they're spending like $800 an hour to listen to me talk. I better bring them something more than just a quote and some ticket stats.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a turning point for me when I started to realize that if I wanted all the big names in the room, if I wanted buy-in from all the people at the company that were going to have to help make the changes, then I was going to have to deliver content that delivered the same value of the time they were spending to be there. So I needed to find an $800 whiz bang wow moment to go sit in front of this customer. And that's strategic risk management. That's budgetary conversations. That's vendor risk management and vendor conversations. That is taking it to the next level, instead of sitting there and going, well, we backed up all your backups and we patched all your patches and we antivirused all your viruses, right?
Yeah.
There's no value in that.
No.
And so we took all of that, and for the clients who still insisted on having it, changed it and moved it into a strategic call that happened with my service manager and our point of contact there, 15 minutes, once a month, once every other month, whatever it was, and get that one in and out and gone, so that you can move on to the bigger, more strategic things.
Right. And if you say the phrase you just said to your client, it's going to fly right over their head. They're going to be like, I don't know.
Right. They just glaze over and they're like, can we never do this again, please?
Yeah.
You
And
know?
then, like I said, setting the next meeting is going to be that much harder. Right. So don't set that cadence with them to begin with. I mean, like you said, it probably does need to be a little bit more in length to begin with because you're covering everything.
Your
right?
first one, there's a lot to talk about. But the cadence conversation is a great one because I always like to, and I was talking to a customer yesterday. He says, well, I'm getting ready to go meet these guys tomorrow. I said, great. And I'm walking him through how to schedule them in our tool. And he says, well, I probably should do these guys quarterly, right? And he's gone the drop down. He's getting ready to select quarterly. And I went, stop. Before you set that, go talk to your customer tomorrow.
Yeah.
Give your whole QBR. And at the end, ask them, what kind of value did I deliver here today? Was this good for you? And if they come back and say, hey, it was great, ask them when the next time they want to see content like this again is, and give them options. Like if you think they're a quarterly, then ask them if they'd like to do it quarterly or semi-annually. Worst case, you see them a little less often than you wanted, but it was their idea and they're going to show up.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Because if I go, hey, Lisa, did you see value in today? Oh yeah, I did. When should we do this again? Do you want to see this budget again in 3 months or 6?
Yeah.
And when it's your idea, when you come back to me and say, I want to see that budget again in 3 months, you're going to hold me accountable to show up, much less me have to drag you kicking and screaming. And so by flipping that around, we really get the cadence set by the customer, and then they want to show up and attend those meetings. So, I generally have in my mind a rough cadence that I want for the customer, probably quarterly, but maybe semi-annually. Okay, I'll give them those 2 options and see what they say. And God forbid I didn't deliver value, right? Then they'll come back to that question and say, this wasn't really that informative to me. So I pivot and I go to, well, I really value your time, Lisa. I'm sorry that I didn't deliver you something better. What did you need to see today that I didn't bring to the table? Like, what could I have done to show you more value? And if they came to me and said, I want to see all your ticket stats, then I know what kind of a customer I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And we get to make other decisions, right? We can go adjust what we deliver to this customer. We can try and refocus them, bring them back to the strategy conversation. And maybe ultimately we outgrow that customer. I'm not a big fire the customer guy. I'd rather train them because the money that's already in your pocket's the easiest money you're ever going to get. But if you can't retrain them, and there are some folks out there who can't be trained, then we just work till we outgrow them.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, just like you said, and like you're not going to know those things unless you're consistently working with them and talking to them. And I know I tie a lot of things into the doctors, but I think about like, okay, ideally my dentist might want me to come in, let's say twice a year to get my teeth cleaned. If they just scheduled that for me, I would probably.
And you'll show up. Yeah. It'd be great if they sent me an Outlook invite.
Yeah, they're not going to do that, so that doesn't happen. Right. It's usually like, okay, like when I schedule it, I know I'm going to show up. I can like build it into my time. I know exactly what I'm getting, right? Hopefully not going to hear any bad news over there.
Right.
Same type of thing, right? Like we don't want to hear bad news. We want to hear everything's good. We're, on par for what our goals are for technology for the year, right? And especially with, the way that technology is going, it is not ever set it and forget it, right?
No, not anymore. I mean, I don't think there really was a time when it was, but it's even less that way now than it ever has been. The conversation nowadays is everything. The only thing normal about an MSP is that they're always changing, and that's really what it is, right? We're always adapting to new things. Unfortunately, the world's changing faster today than it ever has, and MSPs have to be on their feet, and they've got to be really fast to react to those things, and that requires meeting with your customers regularly. If the world's changing fast, and I only meet with you every 2 years, you're going to feel left in the dust every time. And I'm going to have a big pile of quotes every time and go, hey, Lisa, I need a boatload of money, please. And your customers just don't react well to that.
No, that's not a conversation you want to be having either, because that's not where you want to be with them, right? If you can get them to the point where you are almost over communicating with them, right, about what's going on behind the scenes of their company. I've seen it happen with lots of MSPs where they're like, oh, I got a thing. I just get to go do this now.
Yep.
I don't need to even meet with them and say, hey, I'm going to need an extra $5,000, right? These laptops are end of life, whatever's going on. We're going to have to upgrade some machines. Like they're just like, do it.
If you're setting the expectation ahead of time, right? We know what they own. Hopefully they didn't go buy a bunch of laptops in the middle of the night that we never found out about, right? If we know what they own, then the budget process should be easy.
Yeah.
I should literally be able to show my customer, here's everything you own. Here's the times when you're going to have to replace them. Done. And so if I just come to you with a quote for it, or just send you the invoice when it's ready, Can we just do it? Can we stop dickering back and forth over a quote and all that kind of stuff? If I just tell you how much money to plan for, maybe a year in advance, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And then
that's
it gets
really,
easier.
and that's, I think a big struggle a lot of MSPs have, right? Is how do I get my client to give me a budget, right?
I'm
What they're
so
willing.
glad you asked that question.
Because I mean, we see it all the time, and it's like, well, how do I get them to give me that magical number?
It's a scary
Right.
question to ask, right? Because if you get it wrong, it comes across as, Lisa, how much money are you willing to spend on IT? How much money can I get out of you? You know, can I get enough to put my kids through school or just to make the Tesla payment? Like, which one are we talking about here, right? And as a sales guy, we don't want to sound like that.
Right.
So, you know, the one that I always use is kind of a modified thing that I stole from Sandler Sales. I had a Sandler Sales trainer that we hired for one of my account managers at my MSP, and they do a technique they call bracketing.
Yeah.
And it's as easy as going to your customer and saying, you know, Mr. Customer, I've worked with a lot of customers in and about your size with similar problems. And in my experience, what I've seen is that an organization your size is going to spend $3,000 to $4,000 a month to solve for the kind of problems you're having. And if I come back somewhere in that ballpark, can we do business, or are you going to throw me out of my ass? Right? And you can say you can say, can we still be friends? Can our kids still play on the same softball team? Whatever your relationship. But at the end of the day, you're trying to get the customer to say, that's a bracket, that's a ballpark that we're okay in, right? We can do business in there. And the minute the customer says that, I'm going, okay, middle of the bracket, top of the bracket, somewhere in there is what I can deliver on. If they're a little gunshot, oof, you know, $3,000 is kind of the top of what I thought I could spend. 4 would be probably a deal breaker, right? Well, now I can go back and do the math problem and go, no, can I do it for $3,000? Do I want this guy at $3,000, or is, you know, and now we approach it very educated. And I always follow that up with, you know, one more reminder call before I do my presentation. I always call the customer and touch base and remind them of their problems. And I touch on that again. Hey, remember, we said, you know, somewhere $3,000 to $4,000, we could probably do some business. Well, you were kind of on the fence at 3. There's no way I'm going to be able to get you to 3. If I, you know, if we're on that end of the spectrum, are we okay? And I'm kind of prepping them for it. And when I go to present, we're going to be at 3250. We're going to wow them. We're going to solve all their problems. We're going to deal with all the stuff. And we're probably going to have a 60 or 70% close rate, right? Because we know that we're going in to see a customer who is prepared to have that conversation. And they don't want you to waste their time if they know you're going to come back. If their gut is at $3,000 and you're coming back at 12, they don't want to waste your time. They don't want to waste their time. They'll go find somebody else. So it helps you get to know early. It helps you set the bracket and really understand where the customer's budget lies. Most of the time they're going to go, man, I had never really thought about how much it was going to cost, but yeah, I guess I could stomach that. Right.
Right. I mean, and the analogy I immediately think about is if you show up to buy a car, let's just say a Tesla, right? And you're like, I want, I don't know, the Model X. Okay. They're not going to be showing you like a Rolls Royce if you're like, I want the Model X Tesla.
Right.
I mean, like, oh, but wait, we have this one that's, you know, triple. They're not going to roll that out because that's going to be, they know. You're probably not going to buy anything that day. You're going to walk off the lot. If they can show you what you already, like what you're already interested in, right? The talk that you want to talk, the features that are in that Model X, right?
Yep.
What is this going to give me? You know, I mean, if any of you sat in a Tesla, does this one fart? Does it make funny noises when it turns? Right.
Right.
That's what some of us care about. Some of us not so much. Some of us are like, can this one drive by itself?
Right. I'm going to need it to, you know.
Right. I got a lot of things to do.
I got sales calls to make while I'm on the road. I'm going to be typing up quotes. Like, I'm going to need a car that drives for myself. Yeah. And Paul says we're going to have to mail order that. So I'm not surprised.
But if you show up on the car lot and you're like, yeah, I don't know what I want.
Yeah.
You're going to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
And you're going to see a lot of cars and you're going to walk away even more confused than you were when you walked onto that lot. Right.
Yep. So, you know, the budget is an interesting thing. And I always try when we're doing that budget to get out of them what they're spending with their current IT guy, right? We always want to know that. And, you know, we do a lot of that risk assessment comparison stuff. And I like to sit down with them and say, hey, look, your current guy is only covering 50% of what I think you ought to be doing.
Yeah.
The industry and best practices thinks you need to do a whole lot more to secure yourself. And that's probably why you have some of the problems you have. And another really good one-liner that we didn't talk about was, you know, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is you're getting exactly what you're paying for $1,800 a month. The bad news is you're getting exactly what you're paying for $1,800 a month. And you're going to need to spend about $3,000 a month to really solve for the problems that you have.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts it in perspective for people, right? They understand that, yes, they feel like they're spending a lot of money on IT, but they're spending the amount of money that it takes to have the problems that they have. And if they increase the spend, you should be able to deliver a better outcome. And then all you have to do is follow through and actually deliver a better outcome.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, I mean, I'll see if there's a lot of Tesla drivers
All
on
you have to do
here
is
today.
execute. Yeah.
You know, that, you know, some people are saying, okay, autopilot's enough, right? But it's like, what's the cost difference between the autopilot and like the self-drive mode, right?
Right.
Is that
I
worth it
don't
to
even know the
you?
difference between the two. I'm a redneck with a pickup truck. So
I was like, I don't have a Tesla either.
Yeah.
I drive a Honda.
there you go.
So, you know, but that type, yeah, see, self-driving is
There
$12K,
you go.
autopilot's included. So it's like
Still cheaper than a chauffeur.
very true.
Yes, Patrick, I am in the F-150 club. I absolutely am.
So yeah, there we go. So with you, Patrick Haxton's in there with you. So,
Yep.
And then Ross actually wants to know, is there a list of one-liners?
There's a recording here, and I'm sure we can get a list out. So
Yeah, that's a good one. But I mean, if you think about it in that kind of aspect, it's like, that's what your clients are really thinking about, right? Like we're not, unless you're one of those crazy car researchers, we do not show up and be like, I know everything about this vehicle, everything.
Yeah.
We like want that information from them. We want.
Well, let's face it, as IT guys, we drive them because they come with a 15-inch monitor in the dashboard, right? That's why everybody drives a Tesla, because we're like shiny things, bells and whistles.
Yes.
You know, that's what everybody's looking for. So, you know, we don't need to know anything else. It drives itself. It's got bells and whistles and shiny stuff. And I learned around Christmas time last time that it'll play a Christmas light show too. It'll like honk and play music and Christmas carols and crap. So super fancy. I'm sure I'm going to wind up buying the fiance one at some point because she's drooling, but you know, I don't need a Christmas light show in my car.
Yeah, no, they can do all kinds of crazy things. I mean, and like I said, there's a cost associated with that, right? Do we need top of the line, or is the self-drive mode, right? We're evaluating things, but the kids love the light show. So
see, somebody else knows what I'm talking about. I had no idea. A friend of ours came over in their Tesla and was like, I just downloaded a new, and she had a name for it. It was like a new thing in the toolbox or something. I don't even know. There's something fancy. And she's like, come on outside. You got to look at this. And of course it starts up and my dog starts barking and the neighborhood's going crazy. And yeah, so that's the Tesla world. But
yeah, no, I mean, I've been like, you know, and it's like, you know, when someone was like, oh, it can fart when it turns, I like immediately was, when I saw Chris Weiser, I was like, hey, can you show me this thing in your car? Because like I almost was like, this is not real, but it's real.
That's funny.
You know, just, you know, things are real. But you know, that's you got to get him to give you a bracket or a budget, because otherwise your time is going down the drain. A lot of your resources are going down the drain. You don't want to be rolling out a Rolls Royce when they're asking for the Tesla Model X.
Right.
Right.
And we want to get our no early, right? If I'm walking into a customer who doesn't have $50 to spare and I've got a $5,000 solution, this is not going to work. Even if they find the money to pay me, they're not going to be happy about it, and they're not going to be a good customer, and they're not going to stay, right? So we have to spend our time finding new qualified customers and get the no early from those who aren't gonna make the cut.
Exactly. And that's really important. I mean, and I think sometimes as business owners and as salespeople, like we, as much as we think we can control it and twist it to get the yes, like sometimes it's just not a good fit, and like that's okay.
Oh, and the worst thing is when you get the yes that you really didn't want, right? When you get the yes from that customer who's going to be a bad fit. And so, you know, as MSPs, one of the things we don't talk about enough, and one of the things I don't think we have a good enough handle on, is what our true cost of sales is, right? What does it cost you to go get a deal? And how much do you save by getting that no 20 minutes into the conversation instead of 3 days into risk assessments and network scans and running reports and putting all this stuff together, right? So if we can get that no early, life is good, and we're just in a better place.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, there's another thing that I think both you and Marmy say is don't and Chris says actually this, the only better thing than perfect is done, right? So don't be stuck on it having to be perfect every single time. Right.
And we talk about that everywhere from marketing all the way through to your, the stuff you put on social media, to even to your QBR and your deliverable to your customer. The lifecycle mantra is don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yes.
Right. Sometimes good and out the door is good enough. And I'm a perfectionist. I struggle with it. We say it around here a lot, mostly because I think they're trying to remind me of that. Because, you can sit and toil over something for days that should have been done and gone while you're moving on to the next thing. And if you take it back to sales, if you toil over a sale way too long, you're just adding to that already expensive cost of sales, right? If it takes me 5 days to do what I could have done in 3, then I'm missing an opportunity to go meet with the next guy, and I'm adding cost to the acquisition of this customer. So the other one we use here that Marnie mentioned is defeat the blank page, right? Sometimes one of us is trying to write a blog post, trying to build a slide deck or something like that. And sometimes we just go, hey, I'm stuck. I can't defeat the blank page. So somebody else will come throw some stuff on the page, and then you can go, oh, that's none of that's what I wanted. You can move it around and make what you wanted. And there's some power to kind of getting something on the page and then working with it until you get it good enough. And then, it's a matter of iterate as you go along. And that's how we've built our product. That's how we teach the quarterly business review process. Nobody's going to come in the door the first time and have the perfect quarterly business review, right? It takes practice. It takes maturity. It will change over time as your company matures and as what you focus on changes. We just had 2 partners on our call last Friday who are super mature MSPs. They've evolved to the point where they actually have a section of their quarterly business review that is, one of them calls it his wish list. And he sits down with his customer and says, if you had a blank wish list, what would you wish to have in your business? And they start going over things and tying them to technology and how those might work. And some of it, he says, they take and they turn it into goals, and they turn it into, actual business goals, and they try and deliver on those things. And other things, they're just absurd, and the customer's just, playing the exercise. But he said they get a lot out of that. And the other MSP is doing a business goals tracker, and she's got the spreadsheet, and here's your business goal, here's how technology might support that goal, and here's whether it's in progress or where we're at with it. And so she's helping them take, hey, our sales process isn't as dialed in as it used to be, as it should be. Oh, well, we can get you a CRM tool, we can get somebody in here to customize it, build exactly what you want, and use technology to forward that process. Well, don't think that their QBR isn't way more advanced than even mine was at my MSP. But if I had let perfect be the enemy of good, I never would have got mine out the door, right? So every one of us, as we get the process out the door the way we do it, we just continue to iterate on it and make it a little better every time. And it's that whole, like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Take one swing at it, make it a little better every time, and you can really start to get those things out there. One of Marnie's favorite books, and it's kind of required reading at our company here, is I'm drawing a blank now. Getting Naked by Patrick Lencioni. Make sure you add his name to it when you Google it, or weird things will happen. So that the book is all about being transparent, being relatable, being vulnerable with your clients, right? Taking them that QBR that isn't quite done, isn't quite ready, and sitting down with them and going, hey, this is a work in progress. I know it's not perfect, but here's what we're going for. Here's what we're going to grow into. And this is the thing that's going to, I'm going to improve it next time, and we'll get it a little better the next time. And we're building a business process here, and your customer should buy into that. They should see that and say, hey, we're going to get something better out of this at the end. We're going to work together to build something. They should be involved in that. And if you have a customer who you're not able to open up with and be like that with, you probably, again, have that wrong customer who you either need to retrain or outgrow. And I'm a huge fan of outgrow as opposed to fire.
I mean, I love that idea of the wish list a lot, because I can't even think of a client or like really anybody that's been like, so what do you want? They just go in and goes, here's everything you need. I know, I'm the IT guy, right? And like, we can sit on that, but right. But if you can, that's a really great way to, like I said, even deepen that relationship with them, to say like, I'm here to make sure that this happens for you. Right? This, like, you wrote this on your wish list day one.
Yeah. Right.
Here's how we're going to accomplish this in 6, 9, 12 months.
And they also come back 6, 9, 12 months later and go, is this still a priority to you? Like you wrote it down 3 quarters ago. We haven't done anything with it. is it really something you want to do, or have we just not made time for it? Like, where is this? And it helps kind of reframe and put things back in perspective as other things have changed in the business, right? What was on somebody's wish list in 2019 was probably not the same thing that was on their wish list halfway through 2020 in the middle of COVID, right? They were probably very different things. And Ross is talking about Toastmasters. I don't think I know Toastmasters, but I guess I'm going to have to go check this out. But we do, Ross, a lot of that role playing. And if you work in a professional sales organization, it's just part of the game, right? You do some of that, to the point where I logged onto a web or a Zoom meeting with like 15 MSPs one morning, and I was 5 minutes late. And Dan Tomaszewski, the guy that runs everything MSP, goes, "Alex, you're late. We're role playing and you get to be the sales guy." I'm like,
that is very on par for Dan.
Yeah. And so he just starts throwing everybody's objections at me, like, "Here, we're going to do objections and you're going to handle objections for a half hour." Like, okay.
Okay.
But, there is some value in that, Ross. And if you, if you can get over the nerves of doing it in front of a group, they make you better. Mm-hmm. I trained call center agents for Dell tech support in 2002 before, and I actually became an MSP because I got laid off from that job. But my job transitioned to India when Dell tech support went to India and all that. But we literally sat everybody down in the same room and did walkthroughs. We would do it in front of the class. And we worked really hard to replace filler words in people's language. So when you're doing your demo, if you said or any kind of a filler word, the whole class would repeat it back to you. So you say and the class goes like, it's just obnoxious as could be, but you get people aware that they use filler words and that they don't maybe present as well as they would want to present. It's a really interesting exercise. The other fun one we used to do is we'd take a little pack of Legos and we'd sit two people back to back. One person gets the instructions, one person gets the
I've done this one. It's great.
The pieces, right? And you wind up with a 4x4 truck with the wheels on the roof. I say it all the time, Mark. I know it too. It drives me crazy because I know enough to know that I do it, and I still can't get it out of my system.
I think everybody has their own culprit.
Oh, absolutely. The worst part though is when somebody gives you enough sales training to realize it, and every time you do it, you go, right? But it's just part of life, right? None of us is perfect, and our customers want us to be relatable. That goes right back to the Getting Naked book. Your customers want you to be relatable. They want you to be somebody who they can work with. They don't mind if you're imperfect. There's actually a lot of psychology out there that says, as a salesperson, if you haven't done anything wrong yet, you should apologize for the weather, because your customer feels better about you if you've admitted that you're imperfect than they do if you're some know-it-all who stands in the front of the room and talks down to them. Right? There's a lot of psychology that says, "Oh, it's kind of a crappy day. Sorry, I had to come meet with you guys under, in this condition." And you can't control the weather. We're good, man. Come on in, have a cup of coffee, right? But all of a sudden, they're almost apologizing for you apologizing, and it builds rapport back with that customer if maybe you haven't seen them in too long, or whatever's going on with your relationship with them. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into those things.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that, there is a lot of psychology that goes into it, like an enormous amount. And Marnie and I talk about it all the time. But, I think that just having those kind of discussions, even like the wish lists and things like that, like those things alone set you apart from what other people are already doing out there. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's what do we say that? Let's flip the script really on how QBRs can be. And really, I mean, I know you guys, any of our 7-figure members, I know you guys have heard Cindy say it, but it's all about who's going to eat that risk sandwich.
There's a criticism, isn't there? That is one of the best one-liners I've ever heard. And I take it kind of a step further. As soon as Chris said it, I went, "Oh my God, that is the most real thing I've ever heard." Except when you're going to meet with a customer and you've done the network eval and you've found all the problems, where all the bodies are buried, you understand why the network limps along like it does and is barely up and running.
Right.
I'm a firm believer that at that point, I have the risk sandwich and I own it. And if I don't go have a QBR, don't rush back to have a meeting with my customer, don't go tell them what's going on, I'm going to sit in the corner and eat that sandwich when something blows up because I knew about it and they didn't. And I'm not even sure I'm sure we haven't tested, but I'm sure at some point we'll have to test the legal liability of an MSP who comes in and does the onboarding, sells you just enough to get by, knows you had some other problems and doesn't address them for 6 months or a year. And something happens in that interim, right? You came in, you took over my network, you knew those problems existed, you ran all these scans, and there's all this red in the reports that I'm not smart enough to understand. You sold me a solution and we didn't fix it. So I'm kind of evolving even more recently here as we get more and more litigation behind MSPs. I'm evolving into this world where I think you should do that upfront component of risk assessment evaluation and start the onboarding, rush back along the onboarding and let your customer know every single thing that you find.
Yes.
Right. Because you're almost delivering them their risk sandwich every single time and going, hey, I made this for you in the corner. Here you go. It's yours now. Because once I've made them aware of it, once I've made them aware that they have an option to resolve it, at least I've taken off my plate the fact that I was the only one who knew about it. As long as I'm the only one who knows about their risk, I'm going to be the one stuck eating the sandwich. It's more like a risk hot potato, I think.
I was going to say it more sounds like something where you're like, I don't want to hold on to this, so you hold on to it. And then, obviously with the way things are going in the world ever changing, especially with cybersecurity, it's coming back to you tenfold right now.
It's coming back to you tenfold. And even if your customer loves you and isn't the person who would come after you, their insurance company will when they get stuck holding the bag. So
absolutely 100% of the time. And in the risk sandwich realm, we want to put the sandwich in a refrigerator. Otherwise it's going to be all moldy and you will be eating a nasty
that gets even worse. That gets even worse. But I think the question turns into, how do you deliver the risk sandwich? Early and often.
Oh yeah.
Is the answer that I have to that question, because I think it's one of those things that is just, the world is changing. Litigation around these topics are only going to get worse. It is one of those things where deliver it new, deliver it fresh, early and often, get it out of your hands. Let your customer sign something that says, hey, here, you delivered me some new info. This is risk that, Mr. Customer, you're going to have to carry. And one of the guys in Dan Tomaszewski's Wednesday and Friday call group, they have a group call and they just talk about the problems that MSPs face. One of the guys said he went and sat down with one of his customers and they said, well, this sounds like your problem, not mine. And he said to them, he says, well, I just got my cyber liability insurance renewed. I have 78 customers. And the biggest policy I could buy was $5 million. And he pulled out his phone, 5 million divided by 78. That's all the money that my insurance company is going to have to give you if all my customers get breached. Right. Yep. So let's understand, you own the risk. It is your problem, because you could bankrupt me and there still wouldn't be enough money to pay for it. You need to do the right things. You need to carry your own insurance. You need to be able to find your own way. And I'm here to guide you and I'm here to help you. I'm here as your Sherpa, but I am not here to carry your risk sandwich around in my lunchbox. No,
and I mean, how pissed would you be if you went to the doctor for your annual checkup and you had cancer and they were like, oh, just didn't want to tell you that the day you were here.
I didn't think it was that important at the time. You were standing, you were up and running, life was okay. I thought you wouldn't notice.
So with some color on your face, right?
Yeah. I thought you wouldn't notice. It'd been that way so long. Yeah.
I mean, it's like that. So if you go to the doctor and then you're I don't know, 3 years later, you're like, so I've had cancer for all this time. Why didn't you tell me? Yeah. Right? Things like that. That's like a tumor in their company. Yeah. Don't let that be there. Talk to them about that. Be the person who comes in as a superhero and saves the day.
And I think at the end of the day, most of your customers know technology is complicated, sometimes unpredictable. They know it's expensive. They don't like any of those things. But if you approach them with the right attitude, with the right mentality, upfront, honest, and transparent, and ask them to come to the table and help you come up with the right solutions to solve for those problems, and help them figure out which of those problems maybe they can live with, right? Then we have a different conversation and we get to sit down with that customer and just address it from a different perspective.
Yeah. And then, I mean, and a lot of times it's really eye-opening for them when you start showing them these QBRs, because they're like, I had no idea, right? That, depending on what kind of reporting and things you have going on, I had no idea that Stacy's laptop was 17 years old, right?
Well, and the reporting's interesting because how many customers get an email from you with an asset list in it? They never open it. It goes right in the junk, right? Your customers get, I was talking to somebody this morning and I said, yeah, I'm really bad with my email. You know, there's a ton of it in there. And the guy says, I have 35 emails in my mailbox and that's too many. And I went, well, you can put 2 zeros at the end of that. And that's about how many I have in my mailbox right now. And I've only had this company for 2 years. When I had the one that was 3 years, I guess, but when I had the one that was 18 years old, you know, I had 50,000 unread emails.
Yeah.
Your customers are the same way. They're not scouring just for your email. They're not out here going, oh, Patrick Haxton sent me an email. I better open that one first, right? They're afraid it's an invoice and they're going to ignore it for a little while and then they'll forget about it. That's just it's just how it is.
Yep. And that's where, yeah, that email goes like further and further down as days and days go by. You are less and less on the mind. But that's where if you can open up that rapport, maybe, you know, because I'm like, oh, Alex is calling me, right?
Right. But you want that. You want them to want to interact with you, right? Your interactions with your customers should be good. I used to really struggle with getting clients to open some of their emails, and I would send 3 copies of an email when I got ready to schedule a QBR, right? Because I knew they wouldn't open the first one, so I'd send them a time to schedule your QBR. My second one, title, in case you missed it, we need to have a meeting, and the third one was the network's down. They always open that email. And then I got to say, well, I'm sorry for being a jerk and having to make you open this email, but we were supposed to have a meeting 3 weeks ago. You never called me. HubSpot told me you opened all my emails. So pick up the phone and let's schedule this, right? And they always answer the network's down email, but I'm telling you the rest of what you send them, they just don't pay attention to.
Yeah, no, coming from an IT person, the network's down would be pretty dang scary.
Well, you wouldn't get your email if the network was really down, which is kind of the joke about all of that.
Right.
You know, and I had a customer get a little upset with me about it, but you know, everybody has to find their own version of the network's down, which is the email, you know, your customer will open.
I used to do
steal away, Don. I stole it from somebody smarter than me, so you're welcome to have it.
Yeah, I mean, and another one I used to use actually, and I think I told you about this, is the alligator email, right? From a sales standpoint, follow up, right? They're never going to answer the phone. I'd send them an email and I'd say, have you been eaten, or alligator, I think I'd say, have you been eaten by an alligator? You've either been eaten by an alligator.
That's nicer than mine. That's not going to get your customer mad at you. My customers knew I was a pompous ass, so they didn't care. But
I'd say that. I'd say, or you won the lottery and you like moved to an island. And if that's the case, like, I wish you well, have a drink in my name. If not, and you know, unfortunate, like that one got a lot of opens. Yes, Ross is my crush.
They're gonna pick on us now. This is probably never gonna die.
Yes, that's because my mom is very on me with the likes.
With the Valley Girl thing, yeah.
Oh, it's, I think, a sorority thing, Alex.
Okay, that could be. The whole getting stuck in that chase, though, is an interesting conversation. We should do that. We should cover that as a future topic, because I'm a huge fan of never getting stuck in that place. And there's a lot that we kind of talk with our partners about along your way through your sales process on how to set that defined next step. At the end of my sales calls, I always used to say, you don't want me to chase you. It's not going to be fun for you. You're not going to enjoy it. And you know what? I don't like doing it either. No. So how about you give me the yes or no today, or you tell me when we can meet next week so that I don't have to call you at home on the weekend and you know, stalk you to try and get a yes or no. It won't be fun for either of us.
Right. Another tactic I even used at a company is I used to send out a baby shoe with my business card and say, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. Super
oh my God.
corny and lame, I know. It actually worked really, really well. But like, we don't want you all to have to do that. It's a lot. I had to buy a lot of weird baby shoes. It took a lot of time.
A lot of weird baby shoes. I don't need that. I would rather sit down with a customer and say, hey, look, a defined next step is this thing that keeps me from having to pester you and you from having to feel pestered.
Yes.
Neither one of us enjoys that. So we're just going to agree early on in the sales process that at every meeting, we'll set up what the next call is going to be, what the next touch is going to be. And I promise you, if you show up for them all, when you give me the no or the yes, I won't harass you.
Yeah.
And if you don't show up, I promise I will harass you. Take
Right.
a pick, right? And again, if you can be open and transparent and put that out in front of your customer early on, you're more likely to have a better sales experience. If you believe that your customer doesn't know they're being sold to in this day and age, you're crazy. The whole chase your customer until they say yes, or even just the always be closing stuff just makes me crazy.
It's dead.
Consultative selling should feel nice. It should feel smooth. It should feel like relationship building. We should be able to sit down with that guy, look him in the face over a beer and say, hey man, I would like your business, but if we don't get your business, I'd like for you to send me away saying, you weren't a great fit for us, but I would recommend you to somebody else who was a better fit for you. And we're going to have a good relationship through the sales process. And I had a lot of those. I had a guy who came to me and said, look, man, there's no way I can afford to pay for you. You're stupid expensive. There's no way I could do this. And that dude over the years probably sent me 5 or 6 customers. One of them was a K-12 school.
Yeah.
They spent $17,000 a month with me. That no was worth $17,000 a month for that customer.
Yeah.
I'll take it all day and get there in a way that you can have a good conversation about it. That's my takeaway on that.
Yeah, I mean, and we talked about this a lot last week, but we had a guy from Australia come in, and he got his first no when he first came into our program, and then while he's sitting there at the live event, the no turned into a yes, right?
That's awesome.
Because of the amount and the due diligence he did to have these conversations often and early, right? They got hit with ransomware. He got to he didn't do this, but it was like, I told you so. Right. And that's like really the best situation you can have. Not that we want you to say, I told you so, but really you're saying, I kind of predicted the future in a way.
Well, that goes back to, I've seen a lot of customers about your size in your situation. I've played this game before. I know about what it costs. I know how to fix it. In our experience, this is what it feels like.
Yeah.
And those are really powerful words.
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize it when you go Tesla shopping. They'll tell you that, hey Lisa, you're going to look great in this car. You're really going to enjoy that center console thing. There's an assumptive ownership there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And every one of those things sets your client a little bit more up for this person is a professional. They understand it. They've seen it before. They can solve my problem. These are the people I want to work with. And when you're selling an expensive product, and let's face it, managed services done right is a really expensive product. Done poorly, it's just an expensive product. Done right, it's a really expensive product.
Yeah.
And so you really want to be able to establish some of that professionalism without having to go in and talk about all your fancy tools and all your nerd words and all that kind of stuff. We establish ourselves by building that relationship, building that rapport, and explaining to our customer, don't worry, I've seen worse. I'll get you through this, right? My mother just went in and had open heart surgery about 2 weeks ago. She had a valve repaired in her heart and a bypass done, which is why I didn't make your event.
I was like, is she okay?
But I went with her to the doctor.
Yeah.
And that doctor, sat and talked about it, and he got out a little diagram or a little clay model of the heart, and he talked through it. He said, what we see in cases like yours, this and this and this, and we, this is the valve and this is how it works. And in somebody your size, we generally repair the valve instead of replace it, because in smaller human beings, it's more, the replacements aren't as efficient and they won't work as well. So we'll just repair yours. Goes through the whole thing. And we walked out. I said, Mom, that guy's either a really great salesman and a shitty doctor, or he's a great doctor. Right. And,
yeah,
I feel like, and she walked out feeling like she was in really good hands, and she was, and she had a good experience, and, and she's on the mend, but there's an establishment of rapport just by saying, I've seen it a million times. We know what the outcome looks like already. We just have to come in and apply the model.
Yep.
And he says, when we do this, it goes exactly like this. We've done 472 of them this year. It's just a thing. So there's a lot to that assumptive, like, hey, I know you're going to pick me to do it. And when I do it, this is what I'm going to do. And this is why, and this is how. And, he stood there with that little clay modeled heart, the same way you guys are going to do with your risk assessment, and say, I know what your problems look like. And he's pointing at an artery that's plugged, and you're pointing at a red box that's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And there's a very easy assumption there. That's just, we can do this. We do it all the time. This is what we do. We're experts. Thank you, Luna. I appreciate it. But there's an art to delivering that. And I had a neat shoulder doctor that did my rotator cuff surgery 15 years ago, had none of that bedside manner. if I hadn't known through other people in the community that he was the best doctor in town, and if I hadn't known that he did the sports PT or the sports arthroscopy for the local college and all of that, I probably wouldn't have gone to him, because he had no bedside manner. It was terrible. The guy was not a salesman. His sales pitch to me was, "You're going to come have me do this at some point anyway. Just wait till it hurts really bad, and my kids will make it through college whether you pay me or not." Like, that was his sales pitch, right? Much less confidence building than it was almost some arrogant jerk, versus the doctor who says, "We do this all the time. Let me show you what it looks like." Right.
Right. And then your mom's going to have like a follow-up, right? Where they're probably going to do like x-rays and scans and say, "See that blocked valve that was all messed up? Look how it looks now. Remember the clay heart I showed you what it should look like? This is what you're looking like," right?
Yep. Arrhythmia gone, everything working like it ought to be. Right. And this is your first QBR, right? She's going to go in for her first QBR, and they're going to show her what's right. And it'll be actually, way you said you talk about doctors all the time, and this is why. It'll be obvious to her that it worked, the same as it's obvious to your customer when their network problems go away. She'll feel better, right?
Yes.
They'll want to smash their computers less.
Hopefully nobody's smashing laptops or computers.
I mean, I've seen Office Space, things happen, but
yeah, I was like, we're slamming the phones down,
right.
Breaking handsets. Always a good time with that, but I mean, it happens. We've all seen the crazy videos where people are
right.
It happens, and
So if you're not watching the chat, Marnie did post out there, and we'll make sure it makes it on the Facebook version of this as well. We have some email invite templates that we use to invite customers to your quarterly business reviews. We're always talking about that. It's kind of a fun thing we do, but I always recommend that everybody have 2 or 3 of these templates just in the can, ready to go. The first one is the really nice, "Hey, we should meet." The second one, a little more abrasive. The third one is the network's down, or whatever template that you're going to use. I kind of like the "Did you get eaten by an alligator?" If you're not as obnoxious as me and you can't say the things I say. I sent an engineer out. I was converting him from an engineer to an account manager, because his skill set was getting stale. He didn't want to learn enough. We converted him over to an account manager. I sent him out to Chartech, and he goes out and listens to Alex Rogers speak. And Alex Rogers comes in the door like Cosmo Kramer. He's flinging his arms around all over the place. And he's this big personality comes just flying in the room right in your face. And he's a great salesman. He's really good at what he does. But my meek and mild account manager comes back and says, "Alex, I think we messed up." What's wrong? He says, "If you want me to be that guy, I should quit. I can't do that. I can't be that guy." And I said, "Ross, I think you missed the point." So, the point of me sending you out there was to show you what the end result looked like, and have you work through how to back into that end result by keeping what makes you, right? People like talking to you. Our customers love you, which is why we're putting you in this role. I need you to keep the authenticity that is you, and find a way to get to the same places he was getting. So, if you're not somebody who can say the things that I say, use the bracketing line. Go out to your customer and say, "Hey, I've seen customers like you in our situations. They need to be somewhere in here." And don't end it with, "Are you going to throw me out on my butt?" Say, if I come back with a solution that fits these needs, can we do some business together? Right? If you're too shy to ask if we can do business together, sometimes that can be a tough question. People struggle with that one, right? Would it be worth it for you to continue the conversation?
Yeah.
Right. There's ways to move every one of those. So if any of this sounds to you like words you can't see yourself spitting out, don't. You'll damage your reputation. You'll hurt yourself worse trying to do something that somebody else was successful with. So find a way to temper it down and make it fit your personality. That's the best advice I would give to everybody who's watching this. And if you're a sarcastic little punk, then go out and do it like I do it, and you'll have fun with it, right? I'm too old to do anything I don't enjoy, so I go out and do it and know I'm going to have fun with it. You should all be able to treat sales like that, as long as we turn it into one of these processes that we can just bang out and repeat. And I know Chris is good at helping them build that repeatable process.
Yeah, I mean, and just like tailor it to you, and really I'll say the facade you want your company to carry, the reputation it's carrying through, right? Your city, your town, with your other clients. And, Cindy also and Chris talk a lot about what we call newsjacking. That's something you can also use. Hey, the company next door to you had a breach. This is what happened to them. Here's what could have prevented that. Here's how we can make that not happen for you, right?
Let's not put you in the news.
Yeah, like we don't want you in the newspaper or on the news, right? And it doesn't need to be this bad. This was, we might, it was a really bad situation. Here's what they did wrong, right?
Yep.
And I think that's really looking like when you go to the doctor and you're like, how did I get the cancer? They're like, well, you stood in front of the microwave every day for, your whole life. So yeah,
I'm
you're gonna
pretty
have
sure it
some
was all those energy
cancer.
drinks, but it was all those energy drinks I drank.
Right?
Yeah.
Alex, why do you glow in the dark?
Right.
Because
Monster.
monster,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, a lot of people are like, well, how or why? If you can explain that to them, and then with the QBR tool, you can say, like, use that clay heart. Here's what 100% looks like.
Yeah.
You might be at
Here's what
20%.
the industry experts recommend. Here's what the best practices are, right? The
Yes.
companies who are light years ahead on security are doing these things.
Yeah.
And we need to get you to follow the practices of the folks for whom it worked. It's funny because the breaches that are the ones that make the news. The companies who had a minor incident but had all the right layers of the security onion in place. And I forget which one of our partners it was that called it the security onion, but I thought that was great. You've got all these layers that wrap up and create this really hard, dense shape, right? And the companies who have all the right layers in place, they have a minor incident, somebody reuses a password, somebody clicks on a link, lets somebody in, whatever. There's containment almost right away.
Yep.
And it's not even worth the conversation. Doesn't even come up, right? It never makes the headlines. It's not worth the conversation. And I want my customers to have all the layers so that when a human makes a mistake or when something goes sideways that was unavoidable, we have we've basically limited the impact.
Mm-hmm. And that, I always think when people say impact, I always think when like the OtterBox cases came out and they were like, throw your phone against the wall. Too many people did that and had like cracked phones.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes. So that type of thing. But it does. And when you can actually show them the impact that it is having and can potentially continue to have for them, that's where it starts to become very real. Because you can tie dollar amounts to things like that and go, you sure you want to write that big check instead of we can just do this over here and we won't ever have to get there.
Yeah. Well, and the scary number is once you write the check, God forbid you get breached and you have to pay a ransom. The companies who pay ransom are like 85% more likely to get ransomed a second time.
Yeah.
Once you're on the dummy, he's the dummy who pays it list, life only gets worse.
Yeah. And just having those conversations because it's already on the news, right? Cybersecurity, hacks, breaches, like we just have to make it into that digestible format and explain, right? Here's this big risk sandwich. Here's how we're going to divvy this up, right? It's not all on one plate. We're going to share the sandwich, right? And I think
if you guys are looking for those stories to tell, like if you're looking for the newsjacking and the story to tell the Lincoln College story.
Yes.
Holy cow, this is a 150-year-old organization, 160. I don't know. They were ancient, right? A very old school that between the pandemic and a ransomware breach had to close the entire school.
Yeah.
Out of business. If you think about the endowments that colleges have, how much money they have, how much they own, it's insane that ransomware could put a college out of business. A small business doesn't stand a chance. So we need to be able to tell those stories. We need to be able to have those conversations. And part of that is just opening yourself up to be authentic with your customer and not trying to be fancy, not trying to be flashy.
How would you love it if they called you and asked you about cybersecurity instead of typing things in on Google where we all know God knows what they're going to be reading about.
God knows what they're going to get for an answer there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick said Lincoln College was 157 years open.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And in a matter of like
that is the impact of ransomware. And
it went down quickly.
Yep. And so, this sales process works. I think we're kind of running up on time here, but their sales process works. We need to schedule the quarterly business reviews. We need to have those follow-ups. I think the most important one-liner we used today was don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If you haven't finished it, if you're halfway there and you need somebody to help you kick it across the finish line, reach out to me. You know, the team at Lifecycle is here to help you guys. If you're struggling to get a presentation in front of a customer, we will help you.
Yes.
But also understand that perfect can't be the enemy of good. If you're almost there, if you're close, just get it out there and get it delivered to your customer. If you've got a customer where you've been sitting on the bad news and you didn't want to say it, you didn't want to tell them about it, you haven't figured out how to have that conversation yet, call Chris, call me, call Lisa, call Marnie, whoever you're comfortable talking to. One of us will have a conversation and help you broach that topic with your customer. You know, if you're sitting on a network that you know is a ticking time bomb, let's find a way to address it, because while you're sitting back waiting for the perfect time to retire that one thing, to do the other thing that cleans up the network, you know, you could be sitting on something that's just a way bigger deal. So if you need help delivering that risk sandwich, give one of us a call and we'll help you get it done.
Yeah, and like I said, guys, if you guys are interested in meeting Captain Obvious here, or Miss, I'm just going to call her Miss Patriotic because she was so cool. Charlotte Q3 August live in person.
I'm not wearing that Captain Obvious outfit in August in Charlotte. That's going to be hot as crap.
Yeah, we actually have a really fun theme kind of coming in, which we're going to announce.
Are we allowed to know what the theme is yet?
NASCAR.
Oh boy.
So
I grew up in the thriving metropolis of Dover, Delaware. Okay, we had 30,000 regular civilians, 10,000 military, and a NASCAR track. Okay, it brought 140,000 people into town twice a year to do the races. So that will be an interesting one. I'm not sure I can grow a mullet by then, but I will.
Yeah, I was
have
like,
to figure out how to fit into that NASCAR thing.
Maybe Alex will be our very own Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby, oh yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not really sure, but
That's
you might
hilarious.
be the perfect fit for that. But come see us in person in Charlotte. If you guys need help with this, like I said, reach out to Alex, reach out to Marnie, reach out to Chris, myself, anyone on our team. We're here to help you guys. And on that, we'll leave it at let's shake and bake. Ready, Alex?
Shake and bake.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Always love talking to you. I feel like we could talk for eons and eons, but and thank you everybody who was on here live. Super appreciate all of you, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing y'all in person in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Take care.